Okay, hey guys, my name is Montana. I'm a student here at JTech, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the internal combustion engine. So, mostly every motor goes through a four-stroke system, which in turn requires you to have intake, compression, power, and exhaust. Which let me tell you what that means a little bit more. So, for the intake, it brings air in as you're driving. It brings it to the radiator and everything. It cools the car down as it's doing that. So, brings in the air intake in the back, which goes the air filter, which then filters the air so it's clean air, so that when you start mixing fuel into it, you have a air fuel mixture, which in turn can be combusted, which you just stop. Okay, so with the combustion and everything, the pistons and all that, the four strokes, so as the piston comes up in certain orders, it goes, so if you were talking about in the order intake, it goes down and brings the air fuel mixture into the motor, which then when it starts going back up, it's compressing, and then when it compresses all the way, the spark from the spark plug in the coil pack and all that electricity, it creates a spark which detonates the air fuel mixture and then makes the piston move back down, which in turn makes the power to move the vehicle, make momentum for the vehicle to move. And then as it's going, after it goes down from that combustion, that explosion, that detonation, it goes back, it starts to come back up, and then the exhaust leaves the vehicle through the exhaust manifold, which is right here, and then it restarts that cycle all over again. So some of the mechanisms, the internals of the motor, we have the crankshaft, which is down here in the block. We have the bearings, which the rods, the connecting arms, ride on, so it's not metal on metal and creating friction and heat, unwanted heat, and melting and welding them to each other so they don't move. Then we have the piston head, which allows the piston and the rod, that whole assembly, to move and do the combustion and everything in that whole entire four-stroke cycle. So we have the coil packs up here, which are the spark plugs, which these are on top of the spark plugs. We have the head, which has a dual overhead cam in it. Most motors nowadays, they don't have an in-block cam anymore. The Corvette has an in-block cam still. Fun fact. So then you have the timing chain that connects to the overhead cams. Then you have the valves, and some cars now, not newer cars, have lifters, which it's old. It's because they went from lifters to just the valves and the cams hitting the I'm trying to think of it. Oh, I'll come back to it. So then you have the head, the valve cover. Then in the head, you have the valve springs, the connecting rods, and I'd guess they still use lifters because the cam lobes have to hit something for the valves and everything to open and close to let the airflow and the exhaust in and out. So then, after all of that, you come and you have some accessories. So, some of the accessories, some of the accessories are the alternator, the air compressor, the serpentine belt. You have the pulleys, the harmonic balancer, which is the crankshaft pulley, which basically allows the motor to run. So then in the back with the intake manifold, you have a fuel rail, which is connected to the fuel lines, which allows the fuel into the cylinder. And I believe this is it's fuel injected, which mostly all cars nowadays are fuel injected. They're not carburation. They don't have carburetor injected. They don't have throttle body injections. So hey guys, now we're going to talk about the transmission. So we got the transmission pan right here, which is filled with the fluid, and the gasket is on top of it, sealing it so the fluid doesn't leak out. We got some vehicles have dipstick, this one doesn't. It's a sealed transmission, and we have the CD axle right here, which in turn comes out to turns the tires basically. So then we have the transmission, the whole entire thing right here connected to the motor, which is then has a torque converter connected to the flywheel, bunch of stuff. Then we have also, yeah, pretty much it. Hey guys, so now we're going to talk about the steering and the suspension there. So the first thing I'm going to talk to you about is here's your lower control arm, which is connected to your ball joints, which allows your vehicle to turn so it doesn't just grind. Then you have your tie rods, outers and inners. You have the sway bar, which connects the two so they don't turn individually, so you don't go in different directions and ruin your vehicle. Then you got your sway bar end links, your strut. Then you have, since this is a front wheel drive, it's independent suspension and it's a trans axle, which only the front two will spin on its own. And that's pretty much it. So guys, now we're going to talk about the brakes. So we come over here, we look at it. We have the brake disc shield, which protects all the components, the knuckles, everything, the tire rods, everything back here from getting the brake dust on, which is very corrosive. We're going to come over this way, and we are going to look at the brake calc, which is very, very, very leaky. The whole car is garbage, it's leaking. So we have the bleeder valve here, we have the brake lines going into here. We have the caliper. Inside this cylinder right here is the piston, which pushes on the brake pad to compress them and create friction to stop the vehicle, and the brakes ride on the rotor. So, and that's basically the same on all four wheels. It's just some of the vehicles have a different type of piston. Some are pressed, and some you have to screw in. And then you have brake lines that go somewhere up to the brake booster, which is on top of the car, which I'll have to show you. So guys, now we're going to talk about the basic electrical systems of the engine. So now the basic thing is you have a battery, which applies power and allows power to flow throughout the whole entire motor, allowing it to be powered. Then connected off of the battery is the starter, which has a current flowing to it, allowing the motor to crank over. Then we come over here, we have the alternator, which as the serpentine belt spins the alternator, it powers the battery so the battery doesn't get completely drained and die as you're driving it. And that's the basics of the electricity of the motor. Hey guys, so now we're going to talk about the heating and air conditioning. So right here you have the high and low AC lines. So the small one right here is the high pressure one, and the one down here, the big one, is the low pressure one, which goes back into the heater core and everything, which is back behind the dash. So now if you come with me, we're going to, usually the AC and everything's behind the passenger side. The cabin air filter, the evaporator, the blower motor, the heater core, everything to do with the air condition is usually behind the passenger side dash. And if you wanted to access and fix anything, you'd have to take the whole entire dash out. So that's pretty much the AC. So now we're going to talk about engine performance, the last topic of the day. So in engine performance, there's many different ways to have an engine perform way better than it comes out the factory. You can do tuning, you can do bolt-ons, there's many ways. But nowadays, you don't do bolt-ons, which is just adding a part and getting more power from it. You have to actually tune the motor and program the software that's in it to be able to use the part to make more power for the vehicle. So if you, let's say you put a cold air intake on the car, you would have to tune the car to be able, so it can take more airflow in and make the compression, the intake, combustion, and all that, the four-stroke process, able to have a lot more air in there with the fuel mixture. Because when you get a cold air intake or mass flow or ram air or whatever, you have to tune the motor, or not the motor, you have to tune the software to be able to handle the amount of air that you're putting into it, so it doesn't kill the vehicle as you're driving. So that's how you do engine performance.